Okay, welcome everybody. Just a reminder that all attendees are in listen-only mode. And welcome to Introduction to Microsoft Lists. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A or chat in WebEx, and we will get to questions at the end of the presentation. But first of all, a little bit about Colden Company. We're an information technology service organization. We're a managed service provider. Founded in 2003, so we're coming up on our 20-year anniversary in business with 3 offices. Our footprint extends out to 17 states as well as outside the United States. And we are Microsoft partners. That's pertinent for today's webinar. And the last bullet point, we are repeat winners of the MSP 501 award winner, ranked as one of the worldwide best MSPs. Okay, enough about us. Let's get right to our agenda. And before I do that, I'm going to put up a poll question here and ask, are you using Microsoft Lists today? So go ahead and answer that. And I'll run through our agenda here while you're doing that. So it's going to be quite simple. We're going to define what Microsoft Lists are. We're going to define some uses for lists, and we'll finish with some questions. So a pretty basic agenda for today. In looking at our poll question, looks like the majority of folks are not using lists today. Okay, so let's move on here. What is a Microsoft list? Well, according to Microsoft, it's an application that helps you track, organize work. It's really a place to collect, track, and even share data. It's good for tasks, scheduling, of course, tracking issues. If you have familiarity with SharePoint lists, Microsoft Lists is really just an evolution of that. So in fact, when you create a Microsoft list, it actually is stored in SharePoint. And if you've attended any of our previous webinars, we've talked about the 2 data repositories that exist behind the scenes with Microsoft 365. There's the Exchange repository for emails and things like that, and there's the SharePoint repository for files. The Microsoft lists are stored in SharePoint. Some of the differences between Microsoft lists and SharePoint lists, there's more options for views with Microsoft lists. There's more options for customization of different items in your list, things like that. So it's really an extension, a next generation of a SharePoint list. We really think Microsoft Lists is something that you might want to consider if today you're storing a lot of things in Excel. So I know a lot of people use Excel. It's a great tool. Microsoft Lists works like Excel in a lot of ways. Lists is accessed at office.com. So if you look in your list of apps, that comes with most subscriptions. And it's a good fit, and it does integrate with some other Microsoft products. We're going to talk about that as we go through here. Okay, so what I've got here on this slide is a list of templates that Microsoft provides you. So when you open up lists and you want to create a new one, it's going to give you some templates to choose from. So if you need an issue tracker or an employee onboarding form, they've already built these for us. So you can use that as kind of your starting point rather than having to recreate the wheel. And you can see they've got a pretty decent list here of templates to choose from. So what we're going to do in the next few slides here is we're going to look at some of those examples so you can get a feel for what a Microsoft list actually looks like. Okay, here's the issue tracker. So in this case, it looks to be an issue tracker for a software development firm. You can see you've got a kind of a summary of the bug, a deeper description, what's the priority of that bug, what's the status of it, who is it assigned to, when was it open, how old is it? So just an example of the issue tracker Microsoft list here. Now in our next slide here, you can see it looks very different. And that's one of the things that makes lists, Microsoft lists, different from other SharePoint lists, is you have choices in how you want to view your lists and your data. So here we've got an asset manager, but we've got it set up in gallery view. So you can see we've got pictures for each of the assets. Just give you a little bit of a different look and feel to it rather than kind of a cell-based look at your list. So this one's just showing you a little bit different view. Here's another one. This is an HR list. So it's I guess these are candidates. What stage are they in? What position are they applying for? That type of thing. So the key is, I'm showing you some different lists here, but the key is really to look at your business and see what makes sense for streamlining your particular business process. And again, I'm suggesting looking at what are you using, Excel to track things for today. That might be a good case for a Microsoft list that you might be able to do a little bit more with and set up, alerting and things like that. You can see in this particular slide, this is actually, we've brought the Microsoft list into a team. There's an HR channel here, and we've brought this recruiting list right into Teams, and I'll talk more about that in the coming slides here. So here at Colden Company, we did the same thing. We had a need. We had a need to track the equipment that we're ordering. So I've deleted some of the data here to kind of protect our customer information. So that's why some of these columns are blank, because I've pulled that data out. But it's simply, all right, when did we order something? Is it delivered or not? What client is it for? What exactly did we order? What's the proposal number? Who ordered it? Where did we order it from? Where's it going? Tracking number. There's actually a bunch more slides. Order number, estimated arrival date. There's some more things that kind of went off the screen there. But this filled a need for us, and I'll show you on the next slide here. Rather than having that data siloed in Microsoft lists where you have to log into office.com, choose lists and see your lists, we pull it right into Teams. Teams is meant to be that hub. That's what Microsoft kind of describes Teams as your central hub. We use Teams for a lot here at Colden Company. So instead of siloing that information somewhere else, we've brought it into Teams. It's the same exact list, the same exact data, just added to a particular channel. So this is our Teams view here. We see we've got a sales channel, and we brought this product ordering tracking sheet or list right into Teams. So it's in a very accessible place for us. And you can see it's the exact same data we were looking at the last slide. Some other points is you can create different views for your data. So in our case, we only want to see equipment that's undelivered. So we've created a view saying that we only want to see that undelivered material, and made that the default view. So once something is delivered, somebody checks it off, and then it disappears from the view. Of course, you can check off of that undelivered view and see everything, and of course that data will still be there. That's just one way that we're using lists in our business today. Okay, so lists can be created from scratch. You can take an Excel spreadsheet and make a list from an Excel spreadsheet. They have those templates, as we mentioned. You can create a list from another list. There's lots of ways to actually create your Microsoft lists. And those lists can be added into Teams, as we mentioned, for easy access, or you can access it from a browser. You can customize the views. You can use conditional formatting, much like you can in Excel. So it's got a lot of those Excel type features. And of course, it's easy, being a Microsoft 365 product, to share that data with others. So what we're going to do now is we're going to break from PowerPoint and actually get into lists and show you a few things in lists. So let me pull up Microsoft Lists. So here, what I've done, I've logged into office.com, And from my list of apps, I chose lists. And this is the screen that comes up. When you're looking at this, you have option to look at the recent list that you've been working on, or you can choose all. I just wanted to see the one I'm presently working on here. If I wanted to create a brand new list, certainly I could do that just by clicking new list. And you can see from the slide, it's the same information that I put in the slide there. You can select one of these templates or create a blank list, import from Excel, copy from an existing list. These are all the different ways to get you started creating a list. So for the purposes of today's demonstration and today's webinar, I've created a list. It's an asset manager for our top secret Project Mercury. If you've attended any of our past webinars, you're familiar with Project Mercury. We can't tell you much about it. It is top secret. But here's a list of different assets that we have for Project Mercury. So there's two different ways that you can edit something here. Let's say there's a lot of inflation going on. The price of Gorilla Glue has gone up. I can select that record, and then you'll notice that edit button shows up. And then I can come in here and say, all right, it's $11. It's gone up in price. And I can save that. And you can see the price has now changed to $11. Another way to edit this is to go into what they call grid view, which is going to be more like an Excel feel where you can see your cells. And I could actually manually edit this as well. So if I want to come in here, I could say, well, actually it's gone up to $12. And then when I exit grid view here, you can see it's updated the price now to $12. So there's two different ways to modify your information. It really depends on which way you're more comfortable with. For status, I'm going to go back to our Gorilla Glue here. It says it's in use. Well, that's not really true. So I'm going to edit that. We're not using the Gorilla Glue currently. I can get a drop down here. It's in an available state. It'll change it there. One of the things you can do as well is create your own. So if you don't have a view, let's see, maybe it's in our bunker as an example, you could add that in as an option just by typing it in, and it'll add that to the list of available options. But oops, for now, I'm just going to say that it is now in an available state for us. So that's how I can edit that. And as I mentioned before, if I want to put a serial number, let's say maybe I'm going to edit this in grid view, just to show you a different way. I want to add a serial number to our flux capacitor. Just type in a number, whatever. And now we've got our serial number there. So it's a matter of which way you're more comfortable with. Okay. Other things, much like Excel, maybe there's a column over here, the current owner who's kind of managing this particular asset. That's way off to the side here. If I want to get that brought closer to the front, pretty easy. Just like Excel, you just kind of drag it over. Maybe I want it to be right here. And now I've gotten that so I can see that on the first screen. So it's very easy to manipulate your columns in lists here. There's also, what you may have noticed at the very end, if you want to add a new column, there it is. It's just going to be there off to the far right. And I can click that. And what it does, it gives me a list of choices or a list of options for what type of data are we going to be putting in this column here. Is it a text field, choice, date and time, person? We'll talk more about that in a little bit here. Number, yes or no, currency. There's a lot of different options here, and that's just showing the most common ones. You could click see all column types and get an even larger list. But for the sake of our demonstration here today, we're just going to choose a choice. Maybe it's a multiple choice here. And maybe what we want to know is what kind of batteries do these different assets take? What do we need for batteries? And your choices, you just simply click here. Maybe it's AAA batteries, AA, maybe it's a 9-volt, whatever you want your choices to be. You can change the color. I want the AAAs to be orange, whatever you want. You can have a default value. You can make it a calculated value. A lot more options here. Do you want someone to be able to choose more than one? Maybe something requires both AA and AAA for 2 different components. I would just toggle that to yes. You can have multiple selections. And is this a required field? So this is, you're setting up how you want your column to act once you're done. I'm not going to save this because I don't really need that in our Project Mercury here. But as you can see, there's a lot of choices, and you really need to put some thought into your original setup so that down the road, your list is going to work the way you want it to work. Okay, so in addition to that, I mentioned the different types of views. We could go in here and format our current view. And we talked about conditional formatting, much like you would see in Excel. I'm going to choose that. And I'm going to say, all right, for my manufacturer field, if that equals the United States government, it's going to go ahead and give me the list of options for that manufacturer field. What I want to do is change that row to be blue. And you can see here, if I look around, the Area 51 pass came from the government, so it immediately highlights that in blue. A common use for conditional formatting is for due dates. So if you are creating a list with project due dates, and maybe you want anything that's past due to highlight in red, that's kind of a common thing to do. You can see how fairly easy it is to do that. So again, I'm not going to save that particular rule. Okay, also, since these lists are part of your Microsoft 365 tenant, it's able to pull some information in there without me really having to do anything. So for example, anything that is a kind of a person field, I didn't have to enter Jim Lapointe or Todd Amato here. Let's edit this as an example. Let's say our flux capacitor. If I come down to that particular field, current owner, if I just type a letter, it's pulling this from our Microsoft list of users, our Microsoft Azure Active Directory list. So I didn't have to supply any of that information because it's part of my tenant. It already knows who's in my organization. So makes it nice and easy. So while I'm in here, you'll notice there's also a comment field over here. What I'm going to do actually is look at my Gorilla Glue, since I put a comment in there, and you can see something I learned the hard way not too long ago. So if you want other people to know something like that, you can put a comment in there. You can also @ somebody, and if you want somebody to get an alert or pay attention to a particular comment, you just @ them and their email address, and they'll get that notification. So you can put those nice comments in there. Also, finally here, we can do alerting. So it's a nice thing here. So you can see I've got Gorilla Glue selected here. If I go in and say alert me, so who do you want to send alerts to? You can fill in who wants to get an alert. How do you want to email them or alert them? I'm sorry. It could be an email or a text message. When anything changes or when somebody else changes an item, do you want a notification immediately or just maybe a daily summary of changes? You have lots of options for changes. So I actually set this up. I don't have my email open here, but whenever I change something in the Gorilla Glue asset, it sends me an email saying, hey, there's a change and here's the change. So it's good to get those alerts. Now, this is showing you an alert for a particular asset item. If you just want to see in general anything that's changing in the list itself, just make sure none of the specific items are selected. Then when you come back in here to alert me, now you can see up top here, it's anything in the table. So it's not a specific line item. You can get alerts when anything changes in the table itself. So it allows you, if you're the owner of that list, to keep close tabs on your list. If it's something that people really shouldn't be making a lot of changes to, maybe you want to get an alert when anything changes, or maybe if it's something that is changing regularly, just get a daily summary or even a weekly summary. So those are nice improvements with lists to help you keep better track of things and keep your data organized. Okay, with that, we're going to get back into our PowerPoint here and summarize what we talked about today. Microsoft Lists can be a handy tool for keeping your business organized. It has integrations with Azure Active Directory and applications like Teams, which can really be beneficial. Really help to streamline your business process and make data more accessible. So we always like to end our webinars with this quote. If you're running your business the same way you were 2 or 3 years ago, you're not staying the same, you're falling behind. That's because technology is moving ahead, and if you are not keeping up with it, rest assured that your competition is. And with that, we will open it up for some questions. I see a couple have come in here. What I'm going to do is put up our contact information. So that's our phone number, my email address. So if you have any particular questions for us that you maybe want to ask afterwards, that's our information. So the first one is can you do calculated fields and lists? And yes, so much like in Excel, you can, that's one of the options. It's under the advanced options there when you're creating your column, is to make that a calculated field, and then you'll be able to put in what exactly that calculation is. The second question is, this looks a lot like SharePoint lists. How is it different? Answer to that is it's really just an evolution of SharePoint lists. It has more viewing options, which I'm sure you saw the difference there. SharePoint lists is really just more of an Excel cell by cell look and feel. You can have the gallery views with Microsoft Lists and things like that. A lot more options for customizing how you want things to look, colors, just a lot of display differences. Not just the old grid view, I guess, that we're used to seeing with SharePoint lists. Okay, it looks like those were the only questions that came in. So I would like to thank everybody for taking time today. And if you're interested in maybe having a consultation with us and how we could improve your business process using Microsoft Lists, we are very happy to help, okay? Thanks very much, everybody, and have a great day.